You're listening to the Loyalty Minute, the show that helps you build better customer loyalty and more valuable user engagement, with your host, Rob Gallo.
Welcome, loyal listeners, to another episode of the Loyalty Minute. I'm your host, Rob Gallo, and today I am eager to chat with our special guest, Andy Lowenthal, who is the Customer Loyalty Director for Franklin Covey. Andy has been working in the market research and customer insight field since getting his master's in market research from the University of Georgia. Go Bulldogs! Over the past 15 years, he's been focused on designing and implementing NPS and customer experience loyalty programs for Franklin Covey. Welcome to the show, Andy, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Rob.
Good. So for those loyal listeners out there who don't know who Franklin Covey is, or perhaps what they do, you could share a bit of background about them and yourself?
Sure. Well, as far as Franklin Covey, they do a number of things. A lot of it is related to training, trying to help change the behavior of employees to just improve the performance for the company. And my role has kind of been in market research, as you mentioned, for a few decades now. And the way that overlaps is to kind of measure that aspect of it, to try to help companies in particular learn how to have their employees deliver better customer service, so there's more customer loyalty with the customers themselves. And so that's kind of the role that I play for Franklin Covey. But what we do a lot of is really help other companies improve their customer loyalty. That's kind of my role, is to help them.
And the types of companies that Franklin Covey would be dealing with, enterprise or small to medium, what do you think?
It can be any size, really. Anyone, it's essentially companies where the customer experience is integral to their success, where there may be frontline teams that interact with customers on a daily basis or have even B2B relationships with them. Whenever a customer relationship is key, that's when what we offer becomes kind of important.
Obviously, that makes sense, because in every instance, customer relationships are the key to any growing business, right? So,
absolutely.
So the way we do the show is we like to answer the questions whenever possible in the form of a story. So what I'm going to ask you first is the very first question: what does customer loyalty mean to you? And if you could answer it in the form of a story. So it's on a personal level for yourself, Andy Lowenthal, and then as it maybe relates to customers for Franklin Covey.
Sure. For me, what customer loyalty means to me is you've been successful at making a customer's experience great so that they come back and buy your product service again and again. That's kind of the gist of it. So I would say well, go ahead.
What would be an experience that you would say a brand out there is a company that Andy Lowenthal is loyal to, and why?
Well, one I could think for myself would be, for example, a company called Fleet Feet. That's where I buy running shoes. Mm-hmm. And I go there and I'm loyal to them because I know when I walk in, I'm going to get personable, knowledgeable, friendly customer service. The employees are genuinely interested in helping me get the right pair of running shoes when I go there. So I can tell that I know what I'm going to get. So I'm loyal to go back because they're going to provide the service that I want in that situation.
And are they more expensive than the average shoe store?
I would say yes. They tend to have more upper echelon products. But for a product like that that's important to me, I don't mind. That's worth it to get the the level of service that I want for a product that's important to me in that way. And I think when we speak about loyalty, it really means that the customers really kind of love you. They'll tell stories about their experiences with you. You know, loyalty doesn't necessarily, what we've learned, is come from a loyalty program. It's not really necessarily frequent flyer miles or reward points. It's really more just kind of feelings, I think, that come through the interactions with the people. People welcome you, they smile, they speak kindly, respectfully. It's kind of when people go out of their way to make things easy and convenient for us as a consumer.
Yeah, what we like to say, at least I know I do, is that a brand's loyalty is based on its companies and the customer service people and the touch points with the end users is making them feel part of the organization, right? You get that feel.
Absolutely.
So when you walk into your shoe store, and it was called Fleet Feet?
Yes.
Yeah. So they know what you prefer, right? Do they have that sort of information stored in their database?
Correct. They have, for example, the last pair of shoes I would have purchased, and they can look that up and see if that's something I want to stick with. If I've had any issues with that particular pair and they want to switch to something else, or anything that might be up, either to get something different or just to repurchase the same thing.
Okay.
They kind of know my profile, and they can kind of custom it to what I'm looking for or what I need.
Exactly. Okay. So as a from the business standpoint, you being behind the scenes of helping create company loyalty or brand loyalty for other companies that you work with Franklin Covey, what's some examples, without getting proprietary, obviously, with any detailed information, but what's some examples of efforts and focuses that you've done in the past on certain key situations that our listeners could take away and say, we could definitely implement something like that at our place?
Well, I think there are a number of things. I'll pick a couple of examples. One, a chain that we've worked with, I don't know if I can mention the name, but it's over 1,000 locations. They implemented our loyalty solution. And my clients, some of the others that I worked with there, said they could kind of, even once it was in place and running, the culture started to shift. And they said they could literally see it and kind of feel it happening. They could see how they were changing. The people were kind of changing their behavior at the company and importantly in their customer interactions. And then when you do that, when you get the employees to shift, that's when you start to get leads to higher customer loyalty, the way they interact with the customers. So you can see it kind of take shape. It's about just changing the culture to be very customer oriented and focused.
And I'm assuming that starts from the top down.
Absolutely. It has to be right. That's an important point. It does need to start at the top. It has to be. And we've done a number of projects. Another client of ours that we noticed their customer satisfaction had started to dip a little bit. And then the CEO a certain month came out and said, hey, this is our measure. This is what we're going with. This is important, number one priority of the company. And all of a sudden, because we tracked their results, you could see the steep increase they started to get in their net promoter scores and their customer loyalty. It's when it starts at the top and everyone is following it, it just makes it much easier to ingrain it within the culture of the company and improve customer loyalty.
Yeah. So the chain that you mentioned that has 1,000 retail locations, you're more than welcome to mention the name. Again, it's if it's public knowledge, it's not an issue. But I'm looking for the concrete story that would, for a listener, be able to say, yeah, this definitely makes sense. In fact, I'm personally aware that this sort of tweak had made the interaction with that company all the better.
Well, yeah, let me give you another example. This is an example of how to generate customer loyalty. We had there was a family, a friend of mine observed this. He said when this one family arrived at the airport, obviously excited to get to a family vacation or something, and they had to wait for their bags. Once they got them, they waited at the curb for the hotel shuttle to come by and pick them up, take them to their hotel. Mm-hmm. And they didn't see him for a while. Then they called the shuttle company and said, it comes by about every 10 minutes. So about another 15 minutes or so passed, and they still hadn't seen the shuttle yet or the hotel that they were going to be staying at. So they were, a little irritated at this point with kids and everything like that. And then finally what happened was a shuttle bus from one of the competing hotels pulled up, opened the door, and the guy said, I saw you here on my last round. Where are you staying? And when they told him their hotel, he said, well, I can take you there. It's only a minute or so out of my way. So that's an example of starting to generate customer loyalty, because that went kind of above and beyond the daily duties of what that person is supposed to do. So, you think about, well, why did the shuttle driver do that? The family wasn't staying at his hotel, and he possibly could have gotten in trouble for having done so. But he did it because it just felt right. It felt natural. This is the right thing to do. Help this family out, take them to where they need to be. And that's kind of the key to it, is to develop a culture where your employees can kind of feel what's right to do in that moment. And that's what then starts to generate and create loyalty. So, for example, that family, you can bet next time they come back to that city to visit, they're more likely to stay at the hotel where that shuttle bus driver came from. So that's an example of, it's really just empowering the employees to do what's right in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just an example of when someone did that.
Yeah. There was a book I read called Made to Stick by Dan and Chip Heath, probably one of the best marketing books that I've ever read. And truth be told, I listened to it probably 10 times in my audiobook. I'm not a reader because I fall asleep when I read, but that's just me. But they talk about the commander's intent. So like you mentioned before, if the CEO of the company is saying, hey, this is how we want to engage with our customers to make it feel like we're part of their lives and we care, and we honestly do. So in that case, like you said, the guy picks these people up and delivers them to another hotel. But, it doesn't really hurt their business and in the overall business model, and it can only help in that other family saying, this is a great company to do business with. So yeah, I think that's key. So let me ask you this, Andy, as a marketing professional in your field, what can you share with us about the pain points when it comes to creating and maintaining customer loyalty? Again, if you can think of a story, that would also be helpful.
Well, I can think of, there are probably a few points that we run into this from time to time. I would say one of the main things, most organizations probably just don't do enough as far as to provide great service, and that they just don't take it far enough. They may not invest the money to measure it accurately. A lot of people currently are just doing whatever's the cheapest route to get customer feedback. And there are a lot of kind of pitfalls with that, and it doesn't really give you a true measure. And so it's just, think about any area of business. If you really don't spend the money to do it right, you're not going to get what you need out of it. The others I would say would be things like holding managers accountable for poor service. You need to kind of have some teeth in your program, and that those that are not performing well need to improve. And every client of ours, we see a range, certainly when we start with them, when you have a vast array of different locations or customer teams, you have some teams that perform more on the weak side, you have some in the middle, and you have some top performers. And so the ones that are not at the top, that are at the bottom, really need kind of be incented to be mentored or help improve them so they can do better in their performance. And the third side of that would be those who are doing well, reward them, acknowledge them, praise them for the work they're doing. They become kind of the leaders in how to do it right, and should be sharing that knowledge with others within the organization. And so it's just allowing people, I think, to really behave in natural ways, as I mentioned, with the customers. That's the best way to get them to do to break past some of the pain points. Because you see it sometimes, I'll give you another example, where they just stick to the script. They've been told, a lot of people are just, may say, tell me what to do. And so the company will write guidelines for how the company should follow it up. Well, there was a story of one guy who came to a chain, wanted to return some baby products, and he didn't have the receipt. They had been gifts, and so he wanted to return them, but the person at the counter was told, I need receipts or you can't accept it. Well, the reason the gentleman was returning them was because, sadly, they had had a miscarriage and he no longer had a need for it. Mm. And so when this got to the CEO, that they had stuck to the script, what they were told to do, and didn't accept these products because of that, he felt horrible and knew, obviously, we need to change the rule, and know that when you see that situation, act naturally, do what's right, take the product, and go from there. So it's just being human in some situations. Allow your employees to be empowered to do the right thing in the moment. Yeah. That's what we need to see more of.
I agree. And paradoxically, the third point that you made earlier about employees that may be substandard or subpar in their customer loyalty engagements, paradoxically, would it make sense to have them engaged in a loyalty program in and of itself, internally, from an employee standpoint? And I think actually some companies are starting to engage their client service representatives in I don't want to say a gamification type of scenario, but they are actually incentivizing them to increase their productivity that can be measured through KPIs such as NPS and loyalty. So let's really talk about that. Have you guys done anything with any of the clients that you work with at Franklin Covey to make it, consumer-facing engagement with their customer service employees instead of their end users?
Yes, we have, because we've seen this so many times. We've seen this scenario that we started to look at, well, what can we do to help them with the weak performers, especially, do better? And we've really come up with kind of a few different key areas to focus on to do that. The first, it's really kind of three principles, you could call it. The first would be to help them with empathy, to teach empathy or to experience empathy and use that with customers. I'll stick with the airport example to show you kind of what I mean by that. So, for example, the shuttle driver felt empathy for the family that had been waiting. He felt what they, empathized with what they were going through, so he took the step that he did. So it's kind of just, that would be an example of showing empathy, because every customer that comes in has whatever's going on with them. We may not know what that is, but something is, and so just help them with whatever their situation is at the moment when they come into your location or your store, whatever it might be. I would say the second area that we focus on is kind of responsibility. Again, sticking with the example, the shuttle driver took it upon himself to kind of take care of the problem. He didn't call and ask, do I have permission to take this other family to this other location? He just knew he was empowered to do what was right in the moment. And so he took it upon himself and took care of the situation, took responsibility. And the third area that we focus on is generosity. And again, with the example, he was generous with his time. This took him out of his route for a couple of minutes or so, but he did what was right, took the detour and did that. And so those are the three things: empathy, responsibility, generosity. We kind of help teach that when we work with companies that have low performers. Those principles, those are ways to help them improve and increase the amount of customer loyalty that they develop with their customers.
Great stuff. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. As you were talking, Andy, it reminded me of a story about the airport shuttle. I took a trip I flew to Dallas, and I had to get up to Durant, Oklahoma, for a conference, at a casino conference, and it's about a 90-minute drive. So I'm anticipating I'm getting a 5 o'clock shuttle from the airport to the hotel. So I get to the airport at about, I don't know, it's about 4:45. I grab my bag. I'm outside and waiting for the shuttle to take me from terminal, I think it was C to terminal D, terminal B to terminal D. So I get on the shuttle. The shuttle's got 15 people on it. Everyone is going to terminal D except one guy. And I'm thinking, all right. I said to the driver, is there any way we can go directly to terminal D? I got to catch this thing. Everybody else is going to terminal D. He says to the one guy who's getting to terminal C, would you guys mind hopping off this bus and getting on the one right behind us, which is going to terminal C? They said, yeah, sure, no problem. They do it. I'm like, this guy's my hero. So we start driving. He's pulling out. He gets to the dispatch. He says, dispatch, we're going to go directly to terminal D. Everyone on the bus is going to terminal D. All of a sudden you hear back, negative. Head to the terminal C for the original schedule. I'm like, oh man. So obviously I missed the thing. I ended up taking an Uber for $115. But so it didn't work in my favor, but the guy tried for me, but he had to stick to the rules.
That's right.
It is what it is.
Empower them to not have to do that. Oh, I feel you on that story.
Yeah. Well, I guess there must have been a reason. And I'm not specifically sure what the reason was, but they stuck to the plan. And, for the one guy, me, and the other 17 people, that it just didn't make a difference. Anyway, I digress. So let me ask you one other question. In an ideal world, what does your customer loyalty engagement strategy look like in a futuristic story of a better customer journey?
Well, I would say in a perfect world, what it would be is it would be giving all customers a great experience. They, continue to come back and buy more and more and tell others about it as well. It's not just the occasional good experience. And that's what we find often is that there's not consistent execution of providing customers with a great experience. You really have to try to get it where it's consistently executed, all the things you're looking for, so that it's really a delightful experience for the customer. I'll try to give you another experience. It's just even to go a bit deeper sometimes. We work with a home improvement chain, and we were told about this one experience where a customer walks in, wants to get a wrench, and he's told when he walks in, they said, the wrenches are in aisle 14. Now, that is what I would call not an example, taking responsibility for the customer. But instead, we've helped with them. And what people would say now, and what we've actually had, is one clerk said, the wrenches are this way. So he walked with him to the wrench aisle to do that. And while you're doing that, he also asked them, well, what are you working on? And the customer said, oh, I have an old fence I'm trying to take down in my yard, and I just want to remove some rusty bolts. Here's some, different nuts and bolts. And the clerk asked if they look like any of these. And when he said, yeah, they're like those hexagonal ones, the clerk said, okay, well, to grab those nuts, what you're really going to need instead is a box wrench. A set of box wrenches should probably do the job. So what the clerk did was he kind of took responsibility for the real job. And it's not to sell the guy a wrench. It's to help him get rid of his old fence. And so if you really have people work on what's the real job to be done with each customer interaction, it's much more likely to lead to a great customer experience where they therefore will become more loyal to return to your chain.
I love it. Yeah. So we don't sell products and services. We sell outcomes and desires.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. That's
and if you
great.
can have your sales frontline people just a kind of approach it that way, it's just a whole different dynamic, and it goes over very well.
Definitely. And that guy, anytime he has any issue, he's going to come back to that store because he knows he's going to walk them through the solution, not just tools that are going to do it.
Exactly. And we see comments from customers because we measure this for them, and we get the verbatim feedback, and they're often saying how great it was, and John Doe helped me find what I was looking for. I'm definitely going to ask for him next time I go back in. So it makes a difference.
Excellent. So last final question. What sort of actionable advice could you share with our listeners that they can implement today to help them attract and retain more customers?
I think the main thing is really to get serious about measuring customer loyalty accurately. There are a few things you can do, I think, to do that. One is invest in a survey that has a high percentage of customers that are willing to take it. It can be whatever methods, but it's got to be a high percentage rate. That's kind of the key, because you want to get a wide representation of your customer base to tell you what's going on. You don't just want the ones that are going to rant and rave or praise on social media. You're going to get that, but that's not necessarily the majority of your customers. You want to get the bulk of them. So get a high percentage survey, which could be phone, it could be email, could be text, and a researcher can help you figure that out as well. And then once you do that, I would say identify who it is in the organization that needs to improve. That's more important probably than learning what needs to improve, because you kind of know what the key customer areas are going to be: service, product, price point, variety, whatever that might be. So the key is learning who, because some people do a better job of that than others. And you need to find out who's on the weak team and help mentor them, and then who's already on the strong team. And so you can focus your efforts on where the improvement may be needed. And then I would say, kind of as I mentioned before, the underperforming people, just give them a compelling reason to change their behavior. A lot of our clients will set up their compensation programs to reward those who do well, and not reward nearly as well those who aren't doing a good job, so they're incented to improve. Kind of the first company we worked with that really kind of put this in place was Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and they made a rule that your NPS score had to be at least average to get promoted. And so if you weren't at least average, you didn't get promoted. So that really kind of raised the tide for all boats, so that people started to improve their performance.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, listen, Andy, I sincerely appreciate you taking your time, sharing your thoughts on customer loyalty insights. If listeners want to get a hold of you for more information, what's the best way to do that?
I would say they can reach out to me directly one of two ways, Andy.Lowenthal@FranklinCovey.com, or call me at 314 608-2609, and we can, at least if you have any questions about it, let me know what they are, and if we can help design something or improve whatever you might even have in place, take a look at it. We're more than happy to do so.
Fantastic. I'll put that in the show notes as well. And are you
Thank you,
active
Rob.
on LinkedIn as well, Andy?
I am. Reach out to me there also.
Okay, perfect. Well, I want to thank our loyal listeners for investing some of their valuable time with us. And if you feel you received some value from the show, we would appreciate a 5-star review on your favorite podcast streaming service. If you know someone else who might be interested in listening and finding value in the podcast, please share. To reference this and other Loyalty Minute episodes, please visit theloyaltyminute.com. Enjoy.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for your next edition of the Loyalty Minute.